Welcome and good morning to Adventures in DeFi Kingdoms. This is Raph streaming to you high above the keep in the hot air balloon. As always, I have Neindorf with me. Neindorf, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be here this morning.
Yeah, it's bright and sunny here in the Midwest, and we have a very special guest this morning. We have a Dr. Zipper himself, one of our original podcast guests. How are you doing, Dr. Zipper?
I'm doing great, and I am so hyped after that intro music.
Yeah, it's that was fantastic. We were chatting about it on YouTube chat here. Mike Diagle was one of the finalists on a music competition that the team did years ago. I think he got second place in that competition, um, and we were so desperate for things to make our podcast sound legitimate that I was like spam messaging every one of the participants, and he was the like it wasn't even him, it was like his cousin or something. It was the only person that got back to me. um and he said, yeah, you could use the music as long as you reference to his SoundCloud location. That's fine. I've had people reach out to me like, can they download it? I'm like, you're gonna have to go to his SoundCloud. I don't know. I got permission like 2.5 years ago, and that's all I know.
Yeah, but it's great to have. It's so great and so great that, even stuff that we did that long ago is still, around and being used and become kind of a permanent part of the community.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so we have a fun stream ahead of us here today, and a lot to get to. Um, as kind of the format for those of you following along at home, we're gonna deep dive into a lot of math on equipment and accessories, and we're gonna utilize the equipment data deep dive spreadsheet that is shared by the team. Maybe Mr. Zipper, if you could put the link in chat, or maybe I can put the
Yep,
link in
done.
chat. Okay, excellent. Um, Hopefully it lets you post that in chat. I don't know if what the
Might
settings
have
are
to
on
copy
YouTube.
paste the link. I don't know.
Okay. So here, let's see if I can do it. All right.
Oh,
So
or
that
maybe it just
is
got blocked. That's fun.
okay.
Okay, yeah, you got it.
Hopefully I can. Yeah, I think I can send it. Okay, here we go. So follow along with this if you want to, and then for those of you who are just looking for the cheat sheet, the guide to the answers to the test, fast forward to maybe like an hour into the stream, and we're going to go through what I'm really excited about, which is kind of like a tier list, except it's going to be a value impact matrix on accessories and what are their functional impact in game. And of course that's going to be reckless speculation by the three of us to get to that. So hopefully you have fun and enjoy some math along the way. All right, so the first thing that I wanted to go to is, as we're talking about community, um, Neindorf, there's a brand new page that we have developed. Well, a few new pages that you've developed since the last time we podcasted. The first one is our ADFK alpha page. And so, where do users find this, and what is this doing again?
Yeah, so if you go to the normal hero data page at the top, now there's two new buttons, and this is the primary button there. You'll see it's new. Effectively, what we wanted to do is we wanted to kind of highlight the beast heroes out there in the world. So basically, what you can do is you can pick your class or any class, so more of a global search, a level, and then a stat or HP or MP that you want to focus in on and be like, hey, who is the top dog for, say, a level 20? Well, I see what you got. You level 20 wizard and intelligence. You can really zoom in and see like what do those high achieving heroes have for stats. And I think it's another one of those tools that kind of hopefully helps people give some bragging rights out there. In the future, we want to make it so that these badges, that alpha badge, shows up on the hero data page automatically if your hero is in one of the alpha lists. And maybe if you're on two or three of the alpha list, you'll get boom, 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 multiple badges. So keep an eye out for that. That's something that I'm still working on, is to tie into this page, to our other pages, just kind of as a fun thing that some bragging rights for those monster holders out there.
Yeah, I absolutely love this. And so right now I have the Archer page up on screen and looking at level 20 and sorting by dexterity, which is a pretty important stat for archers. The highest archer out there is a level 17 archer, and this goes to the bragging rights of one of our guildmates, Franz out there. So congrats to him for not only being an alpha but hitting number one on the level 20 list at level 17.
It's
I
impressive.
really forecast people leaning into stones and crystals more as we start to understand what is the impact of like min maxing all the way up. I'm kind of surprised that we haven't seen as much of this. Like when I showed this before, the wizard, I actually thought that there was some reasonable opportunity for newcomers on the scene to dark summon a couple heroes together and get them up to that level. Dr. Zipper, before I go to kind of my next comments, any thoughts on uh, people min maxing for stats? And are you surprised that people haven't done more of it?
I think yes and no. I think we're still kind of getting to the point of really being able to see and practice what those stats are doing and, where they really come into play. And I know also maybe some surprises along the way about which stats are really the most
Mm,
impactful ones.
that's true.
And at times, sometimes that's all of the stats, as people are discovering more and more that, like, oh, actually, I need dexterity and I need wisdom and I even need strength on my wizard and I need this and that, and it's not just only intelligence or, yeah, and the importance of HP and all of these things. So, I mean, it's even possible that, heroes that had been dark summoned to be quote unquote min-maxed earlier on, we're suddenly finding that now they're maybe a little short on some other stats that could be useful. So we'll see what happens as, people start over and do more new ones now that we have, more combat.
I think you're absolutely right there because there's definitely heroes that I've seen that have a ton of strength, but they miss all the time because we kind of ignored dexterity. So I think
Right.
you're right on the money with that, and that's something that I've trying to you know be a little bit more careful of. And in boar hunting, I've gotten kind of lucky. I had a bunch of my priests that were gardeners, and I didn't even think of them as boar hunting material because that wasn't out. But by chance of them being gardeners, I boosted wisdom and vitality, so they actually end up being decent boar hunt priests because of the HP from that vitality, which was a completely unintended consequence, a
Hmm.
good one at that. But yeah, things like that I feel like are going to keep playing out in this game over time.
Yeah,
And that's
absolutely.
something that we're highlighting here too is not just the alpha stat that you're evaluating, but what are their total stat points? And so you can see if you have someone that was just kind of lucky in one stat or if they are beefy all around. You look at the difference. Well, now you're also looking at the difference between 17 and 20. But 50, points, 53 points difference between number one and two here when I'm looking at Warriors. So I think that will absolutely play a huge role in it. That's a great call out, and really that kind of promotes higher rarities, especially as you get more of those level five level ups, or every five level ups, as we unlock more levels in the game. Okay, so the other thing that there's been a lot of buzz on Twitter, and I think this is a shout out to, is it TFK Helper? My apologies if I'm getting this wrong. But people are doing a lot of analysis on the boar hunts being profitable. And this segues nicely into kind of our next topic of equipment because most of the profit on boar hunts is really being driven from the equipment and item sales, people earning those items and then turning around and flipping and selling them on the market. Um, I've been using this as a bit of a training ground for me, and I've actually been keeping all the items that I'm earning from boar hunts and even going out and buying some as well. Neindorf, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, I'm glad it's good for the ecosystem that people are selling these and being profitable. I think that's a great thing to promote. Um, but I'm kind of holding my bags and uh, waiting for the bigger profit down the road, so to speak.
Yeah, I think I had sold a couple of the early pieces when the prices were still
Oh, sky
elevated.
high. Yeah.
But since then, yeah, I'm having a hard time selling. Like, for example, I finally got a charger mask the other day. Having a hard time selling it for under 1,000 crystal. I mean, I feel like at that cost point, I might as well just hold it, and see how at least how this next hunt plays out. From that last week's AMA, they made it sound as if equipment's gonna perhaps be more and more important. I mean, the difficulty of these, it sounds like, is gonna keep ratcheting up, or maybe the complexity is gonna ratchet up, which I guess is more difficult. But yeah, I'm kind of holding some items too. Now, if I get um, a bunch of the same item, maybe I would sell one of them, but I've not had very many drops, so I don't foresee that being a problem for me.
Yeah. Mr. Zipper, Rando Baggins is saying never sell. Rule number one. Uh, what
Well,
what have you been thinking about in regards to equipment and its value now versus in the future?
I mean, on the one hand, there's always going to be, the thing that plays out where, something has been out for a while, there's more of it on the market, and so we're going to see the price drop. And,
Right.
Nindorf, you were just alluding to that, you sold off some stuff when it first came out, super limited
Right.
availability, prices were way inflated for that. And I think at this point, we've kind of seen where the market is valuing a lot of these items. Um, but at the same time, we have one hunt. That has a very specific set of mechanics to it, and not all items I feel are being used in this hunt, and may not necessarily be as useful in this hunt. And it's possible that we could see their use elsewhere. I mean, I think the Charger's Mask is a great example of that, right? People have seen, oh, lower accuracy, just forget it.
Hmm.
Um, and I think in a lot of places have just discounted it entirely as kind of a useless item. And I don't know about that.
Yep.
There could be some uses for that, for later or with other classes or just in other kinds of situations. So I think people need to be careful about either dismissing items as useless or just kind of discounting their general abilities.
Well, I mean, I think you got a great point there. Let's take that min-maxed archer with super dex, right? The accuracy is going to be top notch. Maybe at that point, you could throw a charger mask on there, take a little bit of accuracy penalty in stride, and just boost your damage
Right,
significantly. I mean,
exactly.
that seems like a solid play.
Yep, exactly. Or, something where you're doing smaller attacks more frequently. For example, it's going to be okay if you miss a couple more of those because you're still doing more damage on the lots of attacks that you are hitting. If you put that on somebody with a two-handed sword, where you're counting on those singular big hits and you're dropping your accuracy on that, then it's really painful when you miss.
Right.
Right. And this is getting way down the road, but there's these open enchantment slots too.
Yep.
Who's to say that you couldn't have a enchantment that either counters the weaknesses of an item or just amplifies its strengths, and so you could like balance an item in the future as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm happy for the community. I think that we're seeing, like, I'm glad that there's buzz around this being a profitable game, because ultimately that is pointing towards what has to occur in order for this to be a successful ecosystem in the future. Is that people have to be willing to pay to play the game. Money has to come from somewhere, and I think clearly that's the case. We wouldn't see the 1 million boar hunts or whatever the crazy numbers have been for how many boars slain or hunts done now. I don't know, Zipper, if you have that number off the top of your head,
I
but
do not have that number off the top of my head. I think it was
it
100,000 that we were highlighting recently. So, and
it's
we're
It's
over
over
that now.
130,000 already.
Yeah.
wow,
Yep.
that's crazy. So I mean, I think that that goes to show that people are really enjoying playing this game, and therefore, some people, if they want to play for the profit in the ecosystem, that's fine. And I think that's good. That it's we're creating a really healthy ecosystem here.
Yeah, it is good, but people also have to be careful not to sell everything because, as you mentioned earlier, equipment is gonna be needed, and if you sell everything you get, you might have a little more trouble in the future.
Right.
Right.
And kind of the last point as we're talking about the profit section before we go on to just really deep diving the equipment. Um, if you're the way that I'm kind of looking at this is also like I'm kind of thinking about it like a break even. As long as I'm getting to break even, I'm getting enhanced experience. And so I'm able to take some of these heroes that I want to be battling with the next hunt or with the next set of releases. Like I want to get heroes to level 20. And I had not been as diligent as some out there in the community with leveling up my heroes. And I have some laggards in the pack, or some that, I had picked up some Gen Zeros that were lost, left at level 1, needed a nice home, brought them in, gave them a soup meal, and have been building up their strength ever since. But I picked those up, during the downs of the bear market. And so I'm trying to take a lot of that's this warrior right here who's still level 13 that I'll show here in a little bit. So I'm also using this as an opportunity to get that enhanced experience and try to get those heroes up there.
Yeah, and I will just, make a quick plug because I think sometimes people are forgetting, we are still looking to add to the rewards for hunts, and it's a little ways down the line because we're working on getting this next one out first, but that additional reward is going to be retroactive. So I mean, people who are doing a bunch of hunts and saying, "Oh, I only got 4 tiers. It's useless. It's not profitable." Every one that you are still winning right now is going to net you something later because that reward will be fully retroactive.
I did not know that. That is
That's huge.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
It is awesome.
Okay.
So don't give up yet.
Don't yeah. All right.
Absolutely not. And honestly, now that we're all kind of used to the boar hunts, it is enjoyable, and I do love the randomness. It's sure it stinks if you get crit hit, yeah, but it's a game, right? It needs to be challenging. If it was just 3 strikes and you win every time, I wouldn't play it. So I do like the variability, and it sounds as though that's going to get higher and higher as we move forward here.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, we want to not rely so much on randomness that, it's completely, unpredictable. Obviously we want to make sure that skill is still a part of it. But yeah, I mean, you have to have some variability somewhere. And, different kinds of fights and different kinds of mechanics will have, different approaches to some of those things.
For sure.
All right. Let's get learned here. So I'm going to bring up the spreadsheet that I've shared with Mr. Zipper and Neindorf. And what I'm looking at, I'll zoom in so this is a little easier for everyone following along at home to watch. Okay, that's a little more easy to see. What I tried to do is take all the items and then start to write out, and this is like a work in progress matrix as well. And so I started looking into, okay, what do they do, and what is the impact of the item? What is the impact without the item? And then I feel like one of the challenges of sorry, my robot vacuum just started. I'm usually not home at this time. One moment.
uh,
All right, it was gonna get really loud. The Roomba is not quiet. All right, so one of the things that you guys have done a good job of developing is a game that's complex, but it's hard to understand kind of the functional impact of items and to wade through the complexity. And as you've seen on this spreadsheet, Mr. Zipper, I tried to do a lot of the math behind this. And while I was toiling away trying to figure a lot of this stuff out, Neindorf, you went ahead and started making a tool that makes life really easy for the rest of us. So before we start getting into everything item by item, you have another tool that you've just developed and released. Why don't you walk us through what that is?
yeah, absolutely. So right next to button. There's the other button is combat prep. So basically, it's kind of it's running the equipment deep dive formulas for you on a particular hero that you choose at a level you choose, and just kind of calculating out all those stat points for you. So you can just really quickly go in and say, hey, for this hero, what are his stats? And if I were to say I want to now add a Gorbo to that archer, you can do the drop down and then submit it again, and you kind of can see the difference that would make. So this is kind of a nice way for me to understand it, and then B to make it so that if you're away from the game or maybe you're not in MetaMask and you can't get in there to start pretending like you're going to build a hunt and then see these values. Now you can just come here and see them, and I'll do my best to keep this all up to date as things change over time, and I'll add to it as I have availability. But I think this is a good start at able to dive into those hero combat stats for you.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
so this is available. I'll drop the link here in chat, and this is part of. We're leaving this in the free section of Combat Prep right now, so you don't have to acquire a subscription for this in order to access this at the moment. We'll probably put some more advanced analytics with maybe the other items behind the paywall in the future, but I know, Mr. Zipper, you had helped Neindorf with a little bit of the calculations in the background. And one of the challenges that you guys have right now with developing a game is you can only see some of the functional impact of items when you're in combat. And I know Hubert mentioned on the last AMA that he wants that to change, but you guys have a lot of stuff that you're working on, right?
Yeah, there is a lot of stuff we're working on. I mean, I will say, like, that was something that we wanted to do when we first released equipment. We actually, I mean, we have plans for doing, comparative equipment views, plans for doing, like when you actually are going to select, once you've equipped an item, to be able to see, like, that item has a range of like attack damage, for instance, depending on the stats of the hero. And so we want to make it so that once, that item is equipped to the hero, then it'll actually show the stats that are, directly affecting that hero instead of those ranges. And then also, if you want to switch out something, to be able to show, well, this will add, 4 attack, or, and remove this bonus, and, show those comparative views. And that's something we have planned. It's just, it's a lot, and we wanted to get this out to you guys so you could play and have equipment, and so that's still on the back burner. So it's really great to see a tool like this that allows you to come in and say, hey, well, what would happen if I equipped a Goreblade instead of the Squire's Sword, for instance.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good point. We just we as the community can kind of help fill in some of those gaps for you. You got plenty of runway before you need that typical, like, oh, I've got Goreblade, but maybe now there's this other type of blade that I just found, and I want to see, is it better? That comparison view that most games have. Yeah, with only 3 other weapons out there at the moment. Yeah, you got runway, and that's what we're here for as community, to help kind of fill those voids and make it to give you guys time to focus on that more important feature. Let's get that hunt out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you could do some silly things on here right now.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
Where you could equip the Squire's heavy spear, and obviously you can't do that in game. And so we'll be adding some more, nested restrictions where your class can't select something that you can't use. But in the meantime, just like the main studio is trying to pump out content, so are we. So use this with discretion, and realize that the Squire's gloves are not available and cannot be used on an archer.
No, they cannot.
Well, and again, as always, if you guys find problems with this, let me know. I'm doing my best to make it all up to date and work well. But if you find something, let me know. I mean, I know there can be some slight rounding issues. I'm not saying it's perfect by any means, but hopefully it's very representative of what you'll see in game.
Yeah, it's been pretty close as I've been looking at it. So, I mean, great job. It's not easy to implement all those formulas.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Reverse engineering things just seems fun to me for whatever reason. So here I am.
Yeah, this is if you go to the equipment deep dive and go to the dynamic stat calculator page, these are some of the formulas that we're using in the background with these tables. We were just briefly talking pre-stream on like these coming up with the math to make these work just makes my brain hurt. Like it was hard enough for me to just follow the the algebra here, let alone coming up with the kind of the derivations of how do you construct these modifiers so you can ultimately create a system in a matrix that does level by level what you want it to do. So that was Hubert, you said, Dr. Zipper?
That was 100% Hubert. That is, I mean, that's his jam. He loves working on stuff like this. He has the entire thing set up in Matplotlib, so it's just, pumping out graphs with all of these numbers in it as he can, just tweak them slightly and see, immediately what the impacts are and all that stuff. And I have no idea how this works, but I've seen the graphs and I know it does work, and I, just kind of have to trust and say, this looks great. It seems to be, doing what it should be doing in terms of, setting up those dynamic stats so that, stats really do have impact even at lower levels, and, really keeping things dynamic.
Yeah, after implementing it, there's definitely the feel for this algorithm here is it's very good at what it does. I will say I was impressed. Like reading it, it took me a while to understand why it's the way it is, but after plumbing it in and making it work out, it's pretty elegant and it's pretty efficient too. Like it's not a complicated system to calculate, in terms of compute power, because you got to run these numbers all the time.
Yep.
So yeah, I love it.
All right, so let's jump into the meat and potatoes here, guys. So looking at items, there are really not that many items out there in the marketplace right now, and I have them split up into two basic categories: accessories and weapons. And the first accessory to look at is pants. And so there are three kinds of pants as well that adds to the complexity of what's out there. So if you go to buy equipment, and I don't have a pair of pants that I own, or I don't own a secondhand pair of pants, you can see if you collect.
Yeah, be careful there how you describe that.
You can see that each of these items has different effects as you go into it, and so I'm trying to evaluate these kind of one-off. And so there's a slow resistance, there's an evasion pair of pants, and then there's also a speed pair of pants somewhere. And each of these has, okay, right here, here's a speed pair of pants for 8.4%. So when we're looking at the pants, I considered them, the evasion pants, and what does that actually do for hero? And so I took Hero 312, for example, one of my warriors that I use for boar hunts a lot. He currently has an evasion of 1.65% without the item. Oh, and Nindarf, you should also talk about, we learned by doing this that also your armor impacts your evasion, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep. In the spreadsheet, it does describe that. Light armor, you get a 5% evasion boost. Medium armor is just your evasion's your evasion, and heavy armor, you get a 5% hit to your evasion. So keep that in mind for sure.
Yeah. So if I bought these pair of pants for $153, almost 1,000 or 10,000 crystal, it would increase my evasion and get me from an evasion, and actually that number is different than what it was before. So it would actually be I said math on the fly here, folks. So yeah, that is correct. So my evasion would be on my warrior 4.45% chance. So then the functional impact, what I thought about is if an average battle lasts 12 rounds and each of the enemies is attacking 3 times, I'm using rough math here, and this is my frontline hero, he's probably going to absorb 75% of those attacks. No, I have 80% of those attacks. So for easy numbers, what I did is I took that, 4.5% times 24 attacks. That ends up equaling 1. And so if I wear secondhand evasion pants of 2.8%, my functional impact is approximately, I'll be able to dodge one more attack than I otherwise would have if I'm not wearing any pants in the battle. So, thoughts on this, Mr. Zipper?
Yeah, I mean, yes, if we want to like really simplify things, it gets a little more complex once we start thinking about the entire to hit formula, I think. Um, and so yes to the, immediate one more missed attack, but it also depends on who's attacking. It depends what the attacker's accuracy is going to be. Um, and because those are multipliers of each other. It's a multiplier of the accuracy times the chance not to hit. So your evasion obviously impacts it, but it's not just as simple as saying, okay, well, one in every 25, 20,
Yeah.
somewhere in between there, attacks is going to immediately miss.
Hmm.
So got to take a couple more things into account there as well before, so it's not just that pure 2.8%.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's more like the absolute floor is one extra miss. But there's other bonuses in other formulas you need to consider that will drive that higher yet, is basically what we're hearing.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
All right. So, and that really takes us to accuracy versus hit chance. And so let's jump down to kind of Scully's eye. When I was looking at this item, it is it is a primo item out there. The cheapest Scully's eye right now is $1,200. That's US dollars.
Yep.
And what's that? 80,000 crystal. It increases your physical accuracy by 19% and your magical accuracy by 16%. But accuracy isn't the same as hit percentage. And so there is another formulation between, so you have the accuracy of your hero, you have the accuracy potential modifiers of the accessories you're using, you have the
Yeah,
accuracy modifiers of the moves that you're using, you have the dodge percent chance of the enemy you're targeting, and then also the degree of difficulty of the move that you're using. Is that correct?
yeah, and I think you duplicated degree of difficulty in one of the things you said earlier, but
Oh,
yes. So that's the modifier for the skill that you're using.
okay.
Oh, unless you're talking about a skill that also modifies your accuracy.
Well, so yeah, I have up on screen right now a multi-shot on an archer. Is that minus 7% accuracy? Is that its degree of difficulty?
Yeah,
Or
that is its degree of difficulty.
got it. Okay. And so to get to my accuracy, what I could do here is I could take that hero, 1566. I'm going to go ahead and put on the actual Gorbo that
Yeah,
it
I don't know
has.
that I don't have the ability to put all the amulets in quite yet. I
Well,
was unable to get to some of that,
yeah.
unfortunately.
So my physical accuracy here is, well, let's just do it without that. 95.3%. So then if I add this 19% boost, I would go from 95 plus 19. So I'd have 114% accuracy. Is that right?
Yep.
Well, base accuracy on the hero. And so I'd be starting out with a much stronger accuracy. And one of the things, without getting through the degree of difficulty, one of the things that I was looking at is like on a repeating shot, I could potentially, because I'd be hitting more, I would be doing 50 base damage more per attack based on the higher likelihood of each of the arrows in repeating shot to be doing that damage. Does that make sense? Am I kind of following the logic there appropriately?
Uh, yeah, that seems right to me.
So my reckless speculation is huge, best item in the game.
It's good speculation. I like that.
Well,
Um,
yeah, I mean, and then
yeah,
there's
go
other
ahead.
moves you got to consider too, like barrage, right? Where you're firing 6 arrows, and if any of those miss, that can significantly reduce that stacking damage. So if you've got, you know, that accuracy boost, you might never miss a barrage, and now it's just a matter of randomness on which enemies get hit by your arrows, because they're more than likely all going to hit somebody. And that's when it becomes extraordinarily powerful. Like if 3 or 4 of those arrows hit the same boar and you have that accuracy boost, like you're going to be like taking 75% of a baby boar or more health just from that one barrage.
Yeah.
So that's hard to quantify, but I mean, I use barrage quite a bit in my level 16 archer, and I would tell you that those misses is that extra one arrow that misses can kill the damage of barrage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's back up a little bit and go to a sample weapons base accuracy. Mr. Zipper, help us with. So there is a formula page here on the equipment deep dive that gives you a piece of equipment's base accuracy, and then you have modifiers to that base accuracy. Kind of walk us through how do we, when we're looking at the hero card, and you see an item on your hero card, or you see your hero with this equipment that says base accuracy 90%, 20 dex.
Right.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So uh, every weapon has a base percentage of accuracy for that weapon when you're using it, and but it also has a requirement to receive that base accuracy, and that's the second number there. And so the Gorbo has a requirement. I'm sorry, lost that. Was that 20 or 17? I can't remember.
20.
Yeah, that's 20. That's right. So in order to get that 90% accuracy, you have to have 20 dex on your archer. And if you have less than 20%, then that accuracy is going to drop really, really rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have more than 20%, then it's going to scale up. And it will scale up for a little bit, but there are also definitely diminishing returns on that at a certain point. So you can't, take a um, take a low level weapon and go insane with the accuracy or something like that. But it does mean that it scales based on where you are, where your hero is in relationship to that requirement.
Got it. So that is this beautiful formula here. More formulas. Again, I warned everyone. More math. There is Neindorf, you have your minor in math, or do you also have a major in math? I can't remember.
One of the two. I
Yeah.
forget these days. It's college is a long time ago.
Well, thank you, because the whole goal is we're trying to help you by doing some of this for you while you query your heroes. And so when we add the different weapons and you can look at your physical accuracy, that is changing based on your current hero stats, also the average level of combat. Well, that impacts more of the damage than it does the accuracy. Um, and then the weapon that you have selected. So it is that I appreciate the explanation. This was a bit of a mystery, I know, to many of us in the community, and it's kind of a pain to. I mean, when you're trying to absorb, how do I beat the boar hunt functionally from a strategic standpoint? To also, how do I understand how all of the math works underneath? Um, it's kind of hard to keep all of those things in balance in your head at one time. At least it has been for me.
Yeah, I think so. And especially if you're trying to really dig into those numbers and and actually do the min-maxing to figure it out. But I mean, I think the basic sense of it is that it sets kind of a relative level for that weapon, so that at a certain point, um, you're not going to get anything more from that weapon. If you I said earlier, if you try to use a lower level weapon that has 17 dex or 20 dex requirement, you can't just use that at level 30 and expect to get, like, you'll have really high accuracy, but you're going to be using a weapon that does much lower damage than something that is scaled to your level. So it just kind of helps keep the balance of accuracy in play as your heroes level up, and and forces you, frankly, to to keep finding weapons that are better scaled for your level. Um, so I mean, you could do it the same way as well. You could take a low level hero and you can't just equip a higher level weapon even if you meet the strength requirement, because if your dex is going to be way under the requirement, then you're going to have a much harder time hitting with that weapon.
Right, right.
That's a good point, that these are weapons specific to a level. And I don't think it says currently on them in the UI, but I gotta assume eventually you'll have to put something that says, "Oh, this is a level 10 blade,"
I think it
or maybe it
does.
already does. I always forget. I forget it. Once you have them equipped, you just kind of use them and forget.
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah,
just
that's a
yeah,
great point that
primitive.
those two numbers for accuracy come from the weapon, and those numbers are selected based on the level of which that weapon is. So yeah,
Exactly.
I love that point that level 12 weapons that we might get from a future hunt are going to have accuracy adjustments, assuming 2 levels higher of heroes. So I would expect those all to go up by a few points,
Right.
and then that way your accuracy numbers still work out and balance is maintained. So yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, and you might see similar accuracy requirement numbers, the AAR, that's the percentage there for a higher level weapon, but you'll see a higher required dex for that. So
Hmm.
you still might have 90%, but maybe it's going to be, 25 or 30 dex, or, 40 or 50 in the future.
Got it.
Right.
Kind of going off topic here, but this little green bar here scares me.
Hmm.
Item durability, like that. I love how that is in the UI right now, and it's like it's kind of hauntingly out there. Like at some point, there will be a finite use case for
Yep.
your weapons, and so can you? I'm going way off script here, Doctor Zipper. So if you can't talk about this, let us know. But when a weapon is having its durability, can a weapon break and then like be destroyed?
So I will say there's still a lot of the final details that we're working on in terms of the durability system, like exactly, how the repairing and how the breakage works, and what won't work under certain conditions and whatnot. But yeah, I mean the sense is that it will consume durability as you go through combat and use that weapon, and at some point it will no longer be functional until you repair it. And repairing it, can only be done so many times. Um, so, and this is not to scare people off from using equipment, but it's also a way to make sure that item inflation doesn't get so far out of hand that that you only need one weapon ever, right?
Yeah.
That there's a use case for continuing
Yeah.
to find these over time.
I mean, that's the backbone of the economy, right, Neindorf? Like, you have to be able to have
Absolutely.
items have a durability, so then the crafting materials are worth something too.
That's right. Yeah, and we know there are more burn mechanics coming for all sorts of things, it sounds like, but I'm sure we'll have to wait for alpha on that till another day.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we talked about one pair of pants. We've talked about the Scully's eye. Um, we have the pants that are slow resistance, which I believe is similar to status effect resistance. Is that right, Dr. Zipper?
Yeah, it is a form of status effect resistance.
Okay, so it gives you the specifically the resistance to slow.
Right.
And a clarifying question on this, and there are no slow, from my quick research, there's no slow impacts in the game right now, right?
I believe that is correct,
Right.
yes.
Because daze and stun do not cause slow. So I call this a wet noodle. The functional impact of this right now. Now, this is current state. We don't know what the next hunt will hold.
Right.
Um, if you are resisting a status effect, that means you just aren't impacted by that status, correct?
Correct.
So it's not like you are less slow by 17%. You're just not slow at all when your status effect is triggered.
I believe that's correct. It's possible I might be getting that slightly wrong, so I should caveat that a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
it feels to me like the Valiant one that the Knight can do, where it gives you a 40% chance to resist a daze. This feels like it's a 17% chance to resist slow being applied to your hero.
Okay. So these
That's
are
at least my read of it.
so the speed and the slow resistance are kind of like um twins in a way.
Very different.
Right.
Yeah, two sides of the coin. Speed just impacts you all the time. So, which do you guys feel is the more important of these two? I mean, I felt like I was kind of ill equipped to, pun intended there, ill equipped to actually describe, what is the functional impact of also speed. And that brings us maybe to a good time to show the new UI.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Alpha.
I
Alpha,
love
alpha
that.
drop. All right, so
This is
how do
pretty
we
cool.
what are we looking at here, Dr. Zipper? It looks cool. It's pretty. There's fall leaves in the background. There's some boars here. What are we looking
Right.
at?
All right, so we are looking at a series of ticks of time, which are all the little white marks across the time bar. And you're seeing the actions kind of laid out according to the passage of time. And as the turns go by, everything is going to move over to the left until somebody, one combatant, gets over to the act. And once they get to act over there at the end, then it's going to be their turn, and they get to take a turn, and then they'll go off until uh, until they show up at the end of the time bar again. So let's talk just a little bit about how the timing system works, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because
Love it. Let's do it.
a little confusing, and it's been in the background. And just to clarify, like, this is not changing at all how the timing system works in combat right now. This has always been there. It just hasn't been clear at all, right? So a tick is an arbitrary amount of time. It doesn't really matter how much time it is, but it's represents the passage of time, and every tick that passes, your hero gains an amount of initiative equal to their speed. So, and that's the speed that you can see on the hero in combat. Once you get up to 1,000 initiative, then you get to take a turn, and taking the turn consumes 1,000 initiative. So, what you're really seeing here is everybody kind of laid out on this time bar, with the estimated amount of number of ticks it'll take until they reach 1,000 initiative to get to act. So that just kind of gives you a general sense of that. And, there's little things that can, affect certain aspects of that. Like if you increase your speed, for example, it's going to reduce the amount of horizontal space between your hero's actions, right? If they increase their speed, then they're gaining more initiative every turn, so they'll get to act more frequently.
So would they be closer to the left-hand tick in all of the bars then, or?
They would be closer together between each of their actions, is
Okay.
what you would effectively see. Like, yeah, so if you took,
This archer.
a swiftness potion or something like that, yeah, you would see the archer's turns get spaced much closer together
Okay.
than they are right now. But, in general, you should be seeing, each of those heroes, and boars has an equal amount of spacing between them. Now, that might not be true if one of them has, say, a slow status effect that, is impacting their speed. So you might see, the next two turns are one spacing, and the next two turns after that are another spacing, because it'll show, when that effect drops off, or the same thing with a, slow or a speed buff or, whatever. So things that impact time are going to be able to be, more obviously seen. Similarly here, you can see how I guess it's the baby boars have, are getting, have a higher speed than the priest does. So, on the first place where you can see them, the priest is acting first behind the baby boars, and then in the next one, the priest is acting behind the baby boars, and I suspect that in the following round they're probably going to pass the warrior as well. So you can just get a better sense of like how those turns are working, where the speed is, and how all of that is going to be playing out.
So really,
So
go ahead. No,
go ahead. Sorry.
speed is very relative to the rest of the field of who you're playing in a given match, right?
Yes.
Okay. It's hurting my
I mean,
brain in a good
it's
way.
maybe not. It's not even relative. I mean, it's absolute in the sense that everybody is gaining an amount of initiative equal to their speed every tick.
Right.
So it's
I
a
guess
question of who gets to 1,000 first.
Okay. What I suppose I mean by it being relative is understanding the impact of the pants has to be done relative to the rest of the field. I mean, yes, you'll go more frequently, but you don't know how much impact that'll have in the game until you know how fast your opponents are.
Right. That's absolutely true. And speed is dynamic as well based on
Mm.
the average level of everybody in combat.
So I got a slight segue question here. One of the things that I'll frequently do in boar hunting is I will pass the turn of my priest so that she's between the charging mama and the babies that follow it.
Hmm.
If does this by chance update before you hit confirm? Like, say I'm about to pass my priest, would it show the adjustment that would be made if I confirm that action?
Um, I don't think it's going to predict that right now, but that's a really great idea. It would be really nice
Because
to be able to see
that
like
would
where
be
that would put you.
huge.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay,
like
I'm
that.
just curious because that would be a use case that would make this 4 times more valuable to me as a UI feature in how I play this game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
if it could
I
show
like that a
like a
lot.
translucent icon of like your
Yeah,
action
exactly.
could be here, that'd be wow. Great idea, Nidorf.
Yeah.
Well,
Actually,
knowing how this is calculated, and I know how much initiative you gain back from passing, I can kind of calculate it myself, though, really, honestly.
uh, yeah.
So it's the tick system, I think, helps enough that I can probably guesstimate much more effectively if passing is worth it or not. So whether it's implemented or not, I think even still, this system provides the tools if you know your speed.
If you know your
Uh,
speed, yeah.
Yeah.
yep, it provides that. So I'm happy either way. This is really cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the one other thing I want to add to while we're talking and looking at the time bar is that there are a few other things that will be on it in the future, and this is one of the reasons that we have this as well. Is that we do have things like delay mechanics, where they're going to happen at a certain point in time. So we have a number of classes that have delay mechanics. I want to say thief, pirate. Wizard is the huge one. Seer, Scholar all have this delay mechanic where something will happen in the future, and so that's going to be another feature of the time bar is that that mechanic that's going to happen at a certain point in time, after 20 ticks or after 30 ticks, X happens. So that's going to show up on the time bar as well on the bottom actually,
Okay.
so you can see exactly when relative to everything else that's happening, that's going to take place. Certain kinds of status effects as well are going to be going to show up there too. So these are like more
When's
global
the
sorts of
meteor gonna
status effects.
crash?
Yeah, exactly. Um, so when is the global slow debuff or whatever going to fall off the field. So you'll be able to see that that on there, and then any impacts to how that affects the turns coming after that. You'll be able to know that.
Would you say that understanding that and implementing that UI feature is required for the next class that's coming out?
It is definitely required for a number of classes that will be coming out in the future. But we've said publicly as much that this is timed thinking about future codices that are coming.
Got it. Yeah, Neindorf and I have been trying to kind of, read the tea leaves. And, I believe Hubert said on our pod it won't be Thief next. I believe that, what, Neindorf, you remember Dreamer saying on a Bogside pod that it won't be Wizard? next. So we're trying to
believe
like
so.
put piece all the.
Well, you're certainly narrowing it down then.
I want to see the Seer come out because I think it was really early in the Codex release chain.
Hmm.
I believe it might have been after Warrior, maybe I don't remember exactly, but I want to see Seer come out. I think that would be a curveball to go into one of the Crystal Veil classes that I think would be really cool.
Yeah, that's a lot of silence from Dr. Zipper there.
Crickets,
I mean, I
crickets.
can't say anything. You know that. Yeah, I
We
would love to
tried.
see Seer. I'd love to see a lot of classes coming out too.
All right, so I feel like slow resistance pants. I'd rather just be fast all the time than I would resist the slow. And I feel like fast all the time really impacts in, a turn economy. Going first, there will be a place for these speed pants in the future. Some meta builds will want to go first, and you'll want to have not only a fast hero like a thief or a ninja, but you'll also want to have a fast hero with pants on, that allows you to go that much faster to get that first turn stun in, or that first turn daze, some kind of disruption move. So actually, I'm super bullish on the speed pants in the long term future, but that is long term future.
I mean, I think the
Oh
speed
yeah, I
pants
mean,
are
I
going to
think
matter right now too, but
Yeah.
I
that's
wanna
just me.
I wanna see someone have a super fast ninja with the speed pants on, and then they have the ability stun. And so the first thing they
Yeah.
do is they're gonna go in and stun maybe that glass cannon in the back, and all of a sudden you're like, well, okay, you
Yeah.
know, the plan is shot already for the other team. Those are the sorts of cool things that I
Yeah.
cannot wait for.
Well, and you look at like combos, and there's like not only is there channeling, but there's also combos. And if you could disrupt an archer's combo by a full turn with stun, and stunned heroes then have to use a basic attack after they recover from their stun. So you've basically taken that archer that, um, if they want to use repeating shot, which is kind of their ultimate move in the game right now at level 13, or like barrage, your 5 point skill move. Those are multiple, like, to get to that combo you have to use, it's the third one in the combo, so you've pushed that archer out to turn 5. Like, that is huge. I couldn't agree more, Nindorf. I love that
Yeah.
idea of stun turn 1.
Well, here's the thing about that though, is like, I mean, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Like, okay, we want the archer to go faster so they can get through the combos to get to, the skills that they want to use. But at the same time, your starting initiative is not impacted by your speed, right?
Yeah.
Where you start and how much initiative you start with is a function of your luck and your agi. So, if the ability to be the first one out of the gate, acting before anybody else does, actually isn't impacted by speed. It's
Oh, it's
impacted
not.
by your hero stats. So, yeah,
Yeah,
and
good clarification there. Thank you. Yeah, you're right. It's speeds after that, right?
yeah, as soon as the ticks start happening, then your speed is gonna, take effect. But, for that
Oh,
Right.
initial set of actions is something different.
okay. So having the speed pants on won't necessarily, it will let you go more frequently after your first action, not more likely to go first.
Not even after your yes, after your first action. Yeah,
Okay,
there we go.
sorry. Hmm. I'm a little less bullish on this now.
Well, I mean, but that makes sense, right? Because speed is your per tick initiative.
Right.
So if you haven't had any ticks yet, it hasn't been able to give you any bonus. You got to think of it that way.
Yeah, I'm bullish-ish.
Maybe
Okay.
for different reasons.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Tal's Curio increase status effect resistance by 16%. Nindorf, you have one of these, right?
I have one of the block ones.
Ah,
So
okay.
this one I mean, this one's pretty straightforward because this is all status effects, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really powerful because like that's like having a bunch of passive genes that help you resist things, or having really high endurance, like super high endurance. So I think this one is huge. It's going to be one of those that it's not going to show up. It's not going to seem impactful. Like, oh, my
Yeah.
hero got headbutted and it just didn't get dazed. But it didn't get dazed, and now you're not at the end of the turn order.
Right.
It's going to be really hard to quantify this one. It's going to be sneaky powerful, in my
Yeah, it's the
opinion.
kind of thing that really I think flies under the radar because you can't really directly see how it's working. But I think we've already seen from boar hunts there are a lot of status effects in this game,
Yeah. Daze and
and being
stun
able to
are status
resist
effects,
those.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Honestly, putting that on your frontline hero to stop the bleed stacks would be huge because I've got that, super thick paladin, and sometimes he's taking 180 damage of bleed. Like if he gets up to
yeah,
5 stacks, it's like it takes a chunk. And so maybe, I've got the block amulet on him now, but he doesn't block very often because he doesn't have very good decks. So this honestly would be a better bet to help that front line avoid those gore bleed, setups.
So
yeah,
I took a
absolutely.
warrior, not even a knight or a paladin, which would have a much higher status effect resistance based on their endurance, like you're saying, Nindorf.
Yep.
I mean, you could be up at 25% with an item like this, which would mean you just resist 1 out of 4.
Yep.
Yep.
It seems good. All right. We'll get to ranking
Seems
them later.
good.
All right. The Aegis, the block.
Yeah, like I said, I do use this one. I do feel like it's more geared towards magical blocking, and that's not really necessary right now. So at the moment, I will tell you it's not super useful. I mean, I think mine is 5 and 10 or 5 and 15, I forget. Um, but I think it's going to play a much larger role when you got people slinging magic missiles. So I think we're still kind of in limbo with this one.
All right. Will help against magic missiles. You heard it here first. All right. Charger's Mask. This is like not. Excuse me, Dr. Zipper. You were talking about this earlier, and you feel like the jury's out on this one. I mean, this is by far and away the cheapest accessory out there right now at
Yeah.
$11. It feels like, and as I've been kind of tracking price, that's come down in price over the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
Why? And you're saying, hold on, people might be jumping the gun on this. What are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, like I said earlier, I think people reacted really strongly to the way that accuracy works, right? And that people were saying like, oh, the calculations are all broken. I'm missing all the time. Therefore, anything that's going to make me miss more is just trash.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think that kind of hurt it in popularity to begin with. And I mean, so one of two things happened. Either it's going to be situational for where it's going to be really useful, or we totally missed the mark. And I don't think it's the latter. But we've already seen, there are some things that are less useful right now. Slow resistance isn't doing a whole lot in boar hunts right now. And so maybe a minus accuracy plus, plus damage isn't going to be as useful. But maybe later you pair the minus accuracy with, some weapon that's you're going to be able to hit more frequently with. So maybe the plus damage negates the fact that you're using a lower level weapon that does less damage in
Yeah.
order to have increased accuracy. I mean, so you can see these things playing off of each other a little bit, but I think people right now anyway see the minus accuracy, forget it.
Right. I appreciate that, and I think it's where you guys have to balance so many things in your mind. Not only how does this impact current game state, but future game state too.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Nindorf, staff or blade? Do you want to talk about one of these next? You're on mute, Mr. Nindorf. We might have lost Nindorf. All right, so let's
Gotta
talk
be there
about.
somewhere.
Sorry,
There he is.
sorry.
That's
Yeah, I was my phone got into a different mode and I couldn't find the mute button. Yeah, so the staff. I I've used one quite a bit on a level 16 priest. It definitely adds a few points of I think it's a few points of both healing and damage. Now, I think the damage is more substantial because the priest that I use with the Holy Wrath, which I actually thoroughly love doing like over 200 damage of Holy Wrath. And then you got an archer in the back that's also dealing some pretty cool damage. So I think I honestly think it's just as useful as the Gore Blade in the hands of your warriors. It's just I don't think people usually think of priests as damage dealers, but because you have to kind of get to that level 15 for it to
Right.
really be impactful. So I think at the higher levels, I love it. At the lower levels, not so much.
I
And I
am.
guess
Yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. Yeah, I was just going to add that we did find that there was a bug impacting the daze
Mm.
the daze ability on a channeling enemy that has been fixed. So if you were using that and like, man, that never interrupts the wild charge, then that is now fixed.
Oh,
So that portion of it should be working as intended now.
Yeah, there was much discussion in the Void Hunts about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, there was.
I feel like people are. This is also circumstances have this weaker than it will be in the future because the nature of the Mama Boar and how Rampage works. You want Wild Charge
Right.
to be channeling, and you in some ways you don't mind Wild Charge hitting either if you've kind of planned around it appropriately. It affords you the opportunity to kill off the babies. And so I could see this being, if there are other channel abilities in the next hunt per se, like that's kind of my reckless speculation on this. You could have another kind of enemy that has a really strong channel and you just don't want it to get off. Then this will become massive in popularity.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Goreblade, it increases your damage, gives you a chance of inflicting bleed, small percent chance of inflicting bleed. I guess I don't have a lot of. I use it on a couple of my guys, but I don't have a lot of thoughts on it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I can take a cut. I think for the way that the boar hunt works, lead is actually kind of tricky because if you want to time baby boar death, having a couple stacks of bleed on one and accidentally getting them too low can get you into
Trigger
rampage
and
territory
nuzzle
pretty
and
quickly.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's tough, but I would say though that the stacking of it definitely helps chip away. So say you had a gore bow and a gore blade, right? And they're both working and you can get those bleed stacks up. You can get through baby boar health pretty quickly with just some basics. So it's kind of a double-edged thing for me.
Hmm. Double-edged blade, you might say.
Yeah, but it also has synergy with Warrior too.
Yeah.
So I mean, keep all of those things in mind. I mean, I think the thing that about all of this is that we're trying to design items that are situational, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, right now we only have one situation, or
Right.
just about one situation with additional class swapping out or whatever. But as there are more combat scenarios and there are more classes, then I think we'll see places where certain of these things really shine and others don't, and that's I mean that's ideal. Right? Not everything is going to be useful all of the time, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
And that segues us to an item that I do feel like is useful all of the time, and that's the bow. Um, I feel like, especially with how archers are built right now, I was just looking at one of my archers with and without. My regular attacks do 13 damage more, which doesn't seem like a lot, but then your multi shots that do damage based on your attack ratio, it scales as you go up. And so repeating shot could do up to 76 more base damage for that repeating shot if the shots are hitting. And I feel like that is in the scope of the boar hunts. I feel like that's a massive upgrade. Um, just by adding an item on. So I'm not surprised by its current price. I feel like the market is valuing this one appropriately, but I do feel like it's good in all cases right now. No, like you said.
Well,
It's also
and the
the
drop
rarest
rates
of them
are
too.
lower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so both those things. Yeah, and I'm not sure how much people are really paying attention to the difference in damage at this point. Maybe because it's harder to, immediately see the impact. And, I think Nandor's new tool is going to help quite a bit with that, to be able to say, oh, hey, if I equip this, my damage is going to go up by, X on a base sort of attack. But I mean, the point that you make about the scaling is super important, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a 5 difference in the base, but once that scales with these multipliers for certain kinds of attacks, then that makes a real big difference.
Okay. So that takes us to the cheat sheet for the test. This is our reckless speculation on the impact versus the value of these items as they exist in the game right now. So the caveat is, we have one boar hunt out. This could change in the future. And so here, the way that this matrix works, impact is on the y-axis, and the value is on the x-axis. So right off the bat, we can put things kind of, let me start repositioning some items in here on the value axis first. And that's not even necessarily our value. We'll put that in the
Going purely by cost.
Purely by cost. And so we have the Scally's Eye is way, it's like
over.
It's like breaking the matrix right now.
Yeah.
So I'll start kind of repositioning these things relatively. And it's not perfect. All right. And let's see here. We got, oh, these guys' pants are a little more expensive than Curry and Aegis. Yeah, and I don't even remember which is which out of these.
You have them in rarity, descending rarity order on the sheet, so.
Yeah, the Aegis is the green one there. Yep.
Okay. Aegis is 153. Okay. So we're kind of approximately here. Where do you guys feel like the impact is then? I feel like
you start at the bottom, or you're gonna start at the top?
Let's start at the bottom here. Boar staff right now.
Try to move that around.
I mean, again, I think since we just talked about this one, I think it's useful if you're using a priest in a particular way, but not so much given the current state of the channeling of the boar. So I think it has to be low. I think it's
okay.
Yeah.
Is the mask more valuable than the staff? Or does it have, excuse me, is it more impactful?
It feels like it. That damage is
yeah,
pretty significant.
But what about the
16% or 15% is a pretty big boost.
If you compare the Charger mask to the blade, which do you feel is more impactful?
Oof.
Zipper, I would guess that you're feeling like it's more impactful. Is that right?
I mean, it could be, but it's situational, right?
Yeah.
Even within the one that we have, I think everything is situational, even within the current hunt that we have.
Yeah,
it is.
Well, that's why I'm cornering you guys and forcing you into a matrix.
I think we're undervaluing the staff too, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, I think right now our value or our impact here rather is how situational is it or how generic is it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the best that we can do at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, really the best way to map out a matrix like this in my brain is it's like you show a current state of where is it, and then where do you think it should be?
Right.
Because then that gives you opportunities to look at what could you go buy.
And so then the bow has to, in my opinion, the bow has to be higher just because of the fact that even at level 10, the abilities that the archer have are already immediately boosted
Hmm.
by that weapon. Versus, like I said, the priest, you kind of got to get to level 15. I
Yeah.
mean, sure, it does a couple extra heal points, but it's marginal. But the damage, I feel like, is a little bit more significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to keep in mind that, for the weapons anyway, all of them are adding damage no matter what.
Right.
Right.
In
They're
all
doing something.
situations.
Yeah, that's true.
Bonuses aside, everything else, they're still doing something.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Status effect is really not, or no, is this one block? This one's block.
Block. Yeah,
Yeah.
to me, that one's pretty low right now.
Okay. And status
Because I have
effect
one
would
and I'm
be
sad.
status effect would be even. I don't know. I guess where is it? Because that does resist stun and daze.
And bleed and all of
And
the
bleed.
above.
All
So
of them.
to me, that one's
So
pretty
many.
significant.
Okay. Pants, pantalones.
Which version? See, right? This is where it gets
Right.
tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on which pants.
Which is the best pants? Evasion.
It turns out the color is all that matters.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
The
Uh,
third
You've
hand
got the
pants
yellow
are the
pants, they
best.
go at the top, so.
Depends how many previous owners they've had. If they're only second hand, they're not as valuable.
Gotta look at the pants facts.
I guess an average of the pants.
I don't know. They're purple. I like to put them high because I don't have any yet, and so I can't. I want them to be high, I guess.
I'm kind of surprised they're. I don't know. I would almost have them kind of less impactful than the bow. I think they will be more
Yeah.
impactful in the future, and maybe more rare. They are more rare for sure.
I can get behind where you have it. I mean, I think overall I'm pretty happy with your placements at the moment, given the knowledge that we have and given the situations that currently exist.
Okay. I put this here. It's
Uh.
breaking the matrix. I feel like
Yeah.
it's good on the impact in game. Like you'll hit everything. Like I don't mess with my archer that has this on. I'm very fortunate that I won one in the raffle. I'm not selling it. I probably should, but I won't. As Rando Baggins said before, rule 1: don't sell your items. So I can't.
Especially the rare ones.
Yeah, I can't believe I have one. I feel quite fortunate, but it's like, to me, they could be game breaking in the future too. Like they're gonna have to build balancing around these. And there's not many of them in the marketplace, so.
No, they're not. And what's interesting is, I mean, I can't remember offhand how many of them went out, but a very small number of those have been opened.
Oh.
That's. I mean, obviously we have
Right.
the handful that we gave out for the the leveling event.
Yeah.
But the original set of them that came from this ancient X-Jewel snapshot.
Yeah.
And so many of those have not been claimed.
Wow.
Just because it was a different time, it was a different market, and a lot of those players are not looking and paying attention right now. But some of them might at some point come back and find that they have the most expensive valuable item in the game right now, just
Right.
sitting there waiting to be claimed.
Yeah, I won mine from not the X Jewel. I did not have that much X Jewel from the leveling event, so I got pretty lucky. Okay, I mean, I guess when we see this is like the snapshot of current state, and I'll take a picture of this. Anything that you feel like, so let's hammer back on. What do we think could be more valuable as we get to the next boar hunt? And so, like, if I was listening to this podcast, I'd want to know, and this is reckless speculation and not financial advice as always, but like, are you thinking about buying any items because you anticipate them to move left, right, up, or down on this impact matrix as we get to the next hunt, which is, I mean, coming soon?
Yeah. I mean, here's what I will say, and I mean, I think you mentioned this earlier. The next hunt is much harder if you do not have equipment. Like, I mean, and this is how it should be, right? Like, you should have to have equipment to have an easier time with things.
Yeah.
This equipment exists for a reason. You know, and it will be impactful. And then, you know, that's what I was saying earlier too. Even just like the damage of those gore weapons, that matters. You know, and it matters more based on, you know, scaling and all sorts of other factors, but like, you know, that will make a difference. And having other, you know, items for status effect or block or, you know, whatever speed, any of those things, you know, is going to make a difference when you need every edge that you can get rather than wandering in with, you know, vanilla, you know, naked heroes.
Yeah. And that will be tangible as well because when BYOP, like when you're bringing your own potions, like that will have a cost to it as well.
Yeah.
Um, so I would actually, I couldn't agree more. I want to really double down on that. We will see these items shift right no matter what. Like just because of, and I mean, unless the drop rates increase drastically. Um, I guess maybe they would continue to maintain, but I would guess that when potions first drop, bring your own potion drops, that they will become more valuable.
Yeah, I think that seems obvious.
Okay, so I might go buy a Charger's mask after this, but do your own
Wait,
research.
why don't you wait about 10 minutes? Hold on.
All
So
right.
here's one other thing that I want to say about equipment that we haven't been talking about. Is that every single one of these items on this matrix has something that scales. You know, and right now it's primarily the bonuses, you know, that have scaling, but there is a range, you know, of effectiveness for every single one of those things. Um, and I will say that at least for the weapons, the highest scaled version of each of those weapons have not been found yet for each of them. Um, so if you, you know, not even on the market, but if you, you know, look through the API or whatever, and you're looking for, you know, what is the highest, you know, scalar bonus for each of these things, there are a handful of each of them, uh, but that is not the highest one that is available, that is possible to get.
Wow, so there's some pretty low roll rates out there for some
Hmm.
Yes.
interesting.
And
Now I want to go do a little research.
could those roll rates change as new hunts come out too?
Um, Probably not.
Hmm.
I think in general we want to keep, um, you know, keep things not changing in terms of like, you know, we wouldn't want to, you know, take an existing weapon and create a new set of scalars for the bonuses and say like, oh, this new hunt will drop the same weapon but with higher percentage, you know, higher scalars on it or something like that. It's the kind of thing that we don't want to have to change
Mm-hmm.
because that would not probably not feel very good.
Okay, that makes sense. That's a good explanation.
You know, but it's also something to keep in mind with the purchasing as well. Like I think if you scroll back up, or you're looking at the, I'm looking at my screen, not your screen. Um, you know, but you know, you've got the prices on certain ranges of equipment, but like
Absolutely.
these evasion pants, that's on the low end
The rolls.
of the scalar, you know, of rolls for that. The other two I think are kind of in the middle. But you know, like there is much higher evasion out there, and that, you know, obviously is going to come at a premium. And you know, the same goes for all of these. Like we're looking at the floor prices of all of these things, and that's going to scale up if you want, you know, the better versions of these.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and they're
great
not
point.
even sorted by necessarily by effectiveness, like and how people are listing them. Um,
Right.
that's a great thing, a great alpha piece to really point out to our careful listeners out there is, you know, watch the prices and watch what the rolls are. And how do we find out like what the maximum evasion is? That's in the API you said?
You know, I don't think we have published any of the max numbers for any of these, and though I mean, what I will say, and I'm not sure if this is alpha or not, is that there are different ways that the scalars can be generated, and so for like the pants, for example, there's just a range that it can be between, and it can land on any you know, decimal point within that range. It's not less likely that you get a higher range or a higher number than a lower number, and that's not the case for the weapons. All of those the options for those are um, uh, losing my words. They do get more rare as they get higher.
Hmm.
So, um, so for the pants, getting something with 2.8 evasion is just as likely as getting something with 7.3 evasion. But it's also a rare item as well. So and with all of the first equipment, this was really us experimenting with the range of tools that we have for generating equipment randomly. So like with the pants, I think the dyes on the pants, the colors that came out, have a different form of how those were generated in terms of randomness as well. So we're really trying to hit all the notes, like say, hey, are these different things going to work? But it does have interesting effects on some of this equipment for saying, well, how rare is this particular kind of thing? And as I said, there are none of the most rare weapons. I haven't checked for pants if anything has hit like the max number or not, but it could also hit just slightly lower than the max number.
Right.
Unlike the weapons where there's a specific set number of options, and the max one is out there and has a specific number to it that is X amount higher than the one below that.
And this is more of a organization question, but armor is considered an accessory, right? But that was kind of
No.
talked about in the AMA, but it's like equipable, or no? That's the
So
weapon. That's a shield that I'm thinking of.
yeah, so maybe you're thinking of shields.
Yes, I am. I must be.
Shields are offhands.
Okay.
So it's a whole other category that is not here in the equipment setup right now because there aren't any that can be exist, right? Outside of the weapons that you get from the guild right now,
Okay.
or the equipment that you get from the guild. But yeah, so I mean, offhands will be a separate category with their own sets of rules and whatnot. The tricky thing is that they exist on the same contract as the accessories, and they do have they're kind of set up similarly. They have the same kind of range of bonuses. It's not like they're completely different. So like in that sense, they do a lot of this. They work the same as accessories in that they'll have X number of bonuses and enchantment slots, but not other really specific effects necessarily. So that's how they're similar to it, but they are completely separate anyway, because they have their own slots that they get equipped in and all of that.
Okay. Do you anticipate, I guess this is probably asking too much, but do you feel like, are you guys working on adding more weapons, or are we going to go towards armor or accessories in the future with the boar hunt? Is that something that is being continued to be developed, or is that later down the road?
I would not say that we're looking to add a bunch of additional drops to boar hunts right now. I mean, I think we're pretty happy with the range of drops that exist for those
Mhm.
at the moment anyway. So I think if you're going to see additional equipment, it's likely to come from a new hunt, or
Mm.
perhaps other sources in the future. That's we're not an immediate thing, but we are looking to have obviously to remove guild equipment entirely. That's
Right.
only there as a placeholder, just like the potions that you got were only there as a placeholder because we want to have those things in game, and for
Yeah.
the equipment we need it. It's absolutely necessary
Mhm.
for the heroes, but we don't want to rely on those things forever. We want you to have to bring all of your own equipment and
Right.
start equipping
Right.
your heroes, and those will be lower level things than what drops from the hunt, obviously. But we want people to be able to start equipping themselves, and that will include a range, that would be the full range of things that any of your heroes would need.
Okay. All right. Well, Mr. Zipper, Neindorf, thank you guys for the time today. Thank you for all of our listeners out there. We really appreciate you guys tuning in on what's a bright Monday morning for us here in the U.S. And for some of you, I hope you enjoyed this different stream time. Hopefully this was more enjoyable for some of our listeners abroad. any closing comments that you have, Nydorf?
No, I think basically just, this was, I'm glad we went through this exercise. It kind of gave me an appreciation for these items again. And, knowing the formulas behind a lot of this, I think can help us make, better informed decisions on how we're playing these boar hunts and how we're equipping our heroes. So, yeah, I love it.
Okay. Dr. Zipper, thank you very much for your time today. Any closing comments for you?
Yeah, just I mean, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure, and I know it's been a while, so we'll have to do it again sometimes. But it's great, digging into these things, and I appreciate so much that you guys are always thinking about, thinking about the mechanics behind everything that's going on and how to, make the most of, those mechanics and really dig into it and build tools to make that accessible to everybody else as well. So just really appreciate everything you guys do.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And that will be the end of our podcast today. Have a good day.
Thank you.